music by Into Oblivion. Check them out on linktree.com. Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Whosoever Group podcast. I'm your host, The Happy Crow.
And this is Storm Whistler.
Hey, you answered in a good amount of time. All right. So today we're going to talk about, our episode is called, What is Sin? So don't worry, this one, we like to go back and forth on things. But this one, we're just going to bother people. You know, it's all right. So this one is a topic of interest to me because I see where the church is missing it, and I ain't going to go hard on that. And we'll see where it goes. So first off, Storm, how you doing? Had a good week?
Had a great week. It's been a little crazy, a little busy, but I mean, 'tis a season for busyness.
To be jolly.
I love this season. Christmas
yes.
is my favorite season. If every day could be like Christmas, I would be okay with that.
All I want for Christmas. Anyway, but everybody.
Sorry you had to listen to that. I'm sorry.
So
moving on.
So everybody, I just want to also remind you, during this season, this is the holiday season. By the way, next week is going to be our Christmas episode. We're going to talk about the history of Christmas and its pagan connections. So have fun with that one. But so just remember, during this Christmas season, we're in a crazy state of the world right now. You're loved. Remember that. Reach out to people. Don't let yourself be alone. Just want to remind you of that. All right. So this topic of what is sin? This is something that the church really doesn't like to talk to for the most part, or it goes way on the opposite spectrum of it, where it's, fire and brimstone and there's nothing good that can possibly happen. Everything's evil. So I truly believe is a minority of churches. It's the minority. It's a minority that people actually go into there and are always getting that hellfire message. I want to talk about the majority, which is prosperity gospel, and that doesn't leave much room for sin because you're more worried about yourself. And that's a problem because that's also sin. So this is one that also churches like to let go because it makes people feel uncomfortable. You're uncomfortable because you don't want to talk about it. You don't want to push away the people in the church. You might not get your tithe money. Oh no. So that's something that people actually freak out about. By the way, I fully believe in tithing. So I'm not throwing it under the bus. I'm saying I believe in it, but sometimes people put their hope in that instead of Jesus. So you have that when you're making people uncomfortable. Then also you have the conversations between non-Christian people, and you talk about sin. They're like, "You're judging me?" Kind of what Jesus said, but I'm doing it in love. It's okay. Don't hate me. But so let's get into it a little bit. We have this concept of sin in this way that you have people wagging their finger at you in the church and saying, "Oh, this is bad." Yes, there's right, there's wrong. That's not all of it. There's so much more. And one thing I want to emphasize is the fact that if you think that Jesus forgives you for everything, and then, well, it doesn't really matter for this world because, Jesus forgives me so I can do what I want. No, that's not how it works. Jesus didn't say, "I'm just forgiving you. You have carte blanche to do whatever you want." It doesn't work that way. So let's talk about what sin is. Sin, according to the Hebrew and Greek, is something missing. Storm, you want to read that verse for us?
Certainly. And the Greek and Hebrew term for sin is missing the mark. Kind of comes back into the archery things, where you're aiming for a mark and you miss it. That's truly what sin is.
I never miss a mark. I always keep both eyes closed.
That's why you miss it every single time.
I wouldn't know. My eyes are closed.
So 1 John chapter 3, verse 4, everyone who sins breaks the law. In fact, sin is lawlessness.
So that implies that there's a law, right?
Yes.
That also implies that you are held accountable, right?
Yes.
So the world's definition is what feels right to you is okay for you. Or, hey, well, that's what you believe. I've heard that from many people. Well, that's what you believe. Yes, it's what I believe, and it's also the truth. We have taken the idea of truth and said, you know what, we're going to make it as relative as humanly possible, because then no one's responsible for anything. If you say, okay, I want to be responsible for just me, then you have no responsibility for the people around you. But guess what? Meanwhile, while you're not taking responsibility because you just want to have that nice little feel good about yourself, you got your neighbors going to hell. Just letting you know. Not saying that you're the one that you're responsible for that. What I am saying is we all have a biblical responsibility to love, to preach the gospel, and a part of that gospel is understanding that you are a sinful being that needs Jesus. So, we're going to talk about the choices of sin. Is it just something you do? So if I tell you, okay, I'm gonna do something, and then you say, no, that's a bad idea, but I do it anyways, that's sin, right? Like if it's something wrong.
Correct. Yes. In a biblical sense, yes.
Yeah. But is there any more to that?
There's consequences to your actions.
No, I mean any more beyond from me making a choice.
Not that I can think of.
Well, let me elaborate on that. There actually is. It's kind of like a virus. See, back in the beginning, we're going to read in Genesis 3:17 through 20. I'm going to read this first, and then I'm going to elaborate on it. Sorry. All right. To Adam, he said, because you have listened to your wife and ate the fruit from the tree, which I commanded you not to eat, which I command that you must not eat from it. Man, I am reading great today. All right. Cursed is the ground because of you. Through your painful toil, you will eat the fruit from it all the days of your life. So I'm going to stop right there for a second. Cursed is the ground. That's the earth, the physical planet that we were on. Let's keep reading. It will produce thorns and thistles for you, and it will eat plants of the field, and you will eat plants of the field. By the sweat of your brow will you eat your food until you return to the ground. So I'm saying you're going to work till you die. So everyone's like, I love retiring. I don't have to work. That's not actually what God intended. Well, that's a whole nother topic. Since you were taken from, until you return to the ground, since you were taken from the dust, and the dust you will return. So, we talked about that last week, talking about that we're from the dust, and we're going back to dust. Well, God, Jesus, however you want to elaborate, because they're all the same. 3 in 1, yes, we believe in the Trinity, just letting you know. So you're talking about the God, Jesus saying, everything is now cursed. Everything. The ground you work on. Imagine this. Imagine going to a rose bush and never having to be afraid of how you grab the nice little beautiful flower off.
Yeah.
You never have to worry about it. Why? Because there's no thorns. Literal thorns were part of a punishment. That's crazy to me. The actual, all the weeds, all this stuff that wasn't there until God said, nah, you done messed up.
So, sidetrack on this one.
Yes.
Do you think this is the original sin?
The original sin?
Yes, this is the first sin.
The first sin of humanity.
Gotcha.
The first sin in general was Lucifer, which was before creation. So that we know of, because we don't know the exact timeline of it, the way God describes it, but we're pretty sure it's before creation.
You're also putting time on angels and the heavenly and the spiritual.
It's kind of
mute point.
Yes, very true.
Very mute point. We won't go into that because that just doesn't make sense. But yeah, I just wanted
let's put a time frame on Infinite. Can we have somebody in the back do that, please? So it's the first sin of humanity. So I'm gonna show something to you. A lot of people say, "Well, what? Somebody ate a fruit, and that means that that I'm cursed?" Nope. What did God actually say? Because you listened to your wife and ate the fruit that I commanded you not to eat. The emphasis is not the your wife thing. Just want to dispel that one right away. Well, see, women are the problem, cause of the problems in the world. No, that is not what he's saying.
That is not at all what he's saying.
And if you think that, you're wrong. I'm just saying. No,
we can go into an entirely discussion about just Adam and the things that he did wrong.
And that also leads into the quote unquote masculinity portion, because notice how God didn't do anything until the man continued the sin. Nothing happened until he did it. Why? Because God set up the man as the head of the household. And then at that point in time, he was her covering. So theoretically, I'm not God. I do not know. But if he would have said no, humanity could have been fine.
Yeah.
Or at the very least, maybe at the very worst, maybe like Eve herself might have got kicked out of the garden, but no, but that's it. But I believe that his mantle of protection was over her, but until he said, "Nope, I'm doing this," that's the moment. Because that's why men, we have such a responsibility as being husbands, as being fathers, as being friends, as being leaders, because that's what men are supposed to be in general as a leader. And you have such a big responsibility that whenever we mess up, it has consequences. So no pressure. Feel the pressure. Anyway, so nothing happened until he made a choice. You did something you were told not to do. And a choice comes from the heart.
This is truly all about the heart.
Yes. The choice comes from the heart. So he made a choice in his heart that said, he didn't even have it wasn't just I wonder, I'm curious. No, that wasn't the sin. Maybe it was, he came to, I kind of want to do that. We're on the borderline now. You know what? I think I want to do that. I think I'm going to. So up until the action, everything that went on there in his heart, that is when that's when his sin actually happened. It wasn't in the moment of the action itself. It was in the moment his heart turned a little switch on. So if we know that sin affected the ground we walk on, and it's like a virus, it's just in everything we do. It's in everything. And so yes, you're actually thinking of sin as a physical, quote unquote, spiritual, physical thing. It's actually in everything. So it's affected us in that way. There's no escape from it. You're born. Guess what? You deal with sin. Now God does talk about the age of accountability, so make sure to dispel that one right away too. People say, "Well, does that mean all our kids have sin in them?" Yes, from the moment they're born, but until they have the cognitive ability to be able to choose for themselves, they are not accountable for that.
So going into that, Romans chapter 3, verse 23, for all have sinned and fallen short of the glory of God. All have sinned. We have all sinned.
We all suck. I say that every week. We all suck.
Or humans.
Yep, and humanity can suck. So let's read. I'm going to read Romans 8:19 through 21. I am sorry, guys. My nose has been stuffed up the past 2 days. Nothing bad. It's just annoying. For the creation waits in eager expectation for the children of God to be revealed. For the creation was subjected to frustration, not by its own choice, but by the will of one who subjected it. So, real quick explanation of that. Creation groans in frustration, and it was subjected to that frustration by someone who was pretty much in charge of it. I'm paraphrasing. God gave us dominion over the earth. What it's saying is, we subjected the earth to the planet that we were on, to the pain that it is in. Not saying it's a sentient being, for the love of God. I'm not going down that road. But
what, Mother Nature isn't a sentient being?
No, we're not going down that nice little pagan rabbit hole. You've heard Gaia. Well, Gaia doesn't exist, so go worship Moloch in your forest and...
Now, Sam, love is what we're called to.
I was actually specifically referencing this group of crazy individuals who go out to this forest, and are very rich individuals who go out there and worship a statue of Moloch and have these weird ceremonies. Yeah.
Not surprised. But getting back on topic, for all of creation waits in expectation.
Yes. The creation that itself will be liberated from bondage and decay and brought to freedom and glory of the children of God. So everything, when it says the creation, is not, now that's not talking about the world. You have to understand the tense change. talking about the earth is subjected, but all creation includes you and me. All creation will be liberated through God. So we talked about all of sin. So we all suck. We all have these sins. So we have our choices, but so before we get into choices, number one, explanation. Remember, sin is a virus that has infected us, that has infected the literal world that we are in. There is no escaping it. There's no getting around it. There's no like, well, I'm going to live good enough. Guess what? You can't live good enough.
Can a mask prevent it?
Sure, as long as it's an N95.
What about social distancing?
I will social distance myself every day. So now we have the now you got me all messed up.
I thought that was my goal.
No, I know.
Oh wait, no, my goal is.
I was going about the mask, and my brain went 30 different directions. Now I got to reel it in again. Thanks a lot. Now I'm like, come on, let's get back. No,
Yeah, I think my goal is either to distract you or to make sure you're on topic. I think I did both.
Yeah. Darn you. Anyway, so I'm still catching up here with my own brain. Okay, so all right, so number one, it's like the virus. It's infected this world. We can't escape from it, and the Bible also says that humanity at its best is nothing but vanity. No matter how good you want to be, you are not going to be good enough. So, well, I'm just going to live a good life. That's nice. You're still going to fail. Wait, what? What do you mean I'm going to fail? Oh, don't worry. We're going to get into that later. So, actually, right now. So, sin is also number two. So, number one, virus. Number two, it's a choice. So, we have the unconscious things that we can't control. Now we have the conscious things that we can control. So, I have a question. Storm, have you ever hated somebody?
Yes.
Well, guess what? The Bible says that's as the sin of murder. You are now a murderer.
What else is new?
Have you ever stolen something before, even as a kid, like a little lollipop from the store? Hey, Mommy, I want this.
Yes, I have. What about you, Sam? I feel like this is all pointing at me, Sam.
Oh, don't worry. I'm going to throw myself under the bus. Have you ever lusted?
Yes.
It's really not hard to do that when you see freaking boobs everywhere on TV. So you know what? It happens. What happens? Have you ever? So actually, let's dig into that one a little bit. You're married.
Yes.
I'm married. So you ever seen a woman and thought, "Daggone, she look good"?
Yes.
It went a little farther in your head than that.
Maybe. No comment.
As his wife's listening with it like a baseball bat when he comes home. So of course that for men, we're not that good at that. We're very visual creatures. So
That we are.
So guess what? Before you're married, you are dedicated to Christ because your entire goal, the goal of humanity, is to come back to the God who created you. So if you're committed to God and you are looking at a woman who is not going to be your wife lustfully, or is not your wife lustfully, you have committed adultery with God himself. So my point being, no matter what, even after you're married, you're committing adultery with your wife and God. And then before that, you're just doing it with God. So no matter what, it's not a good situation. I'm just saying.
It's a lose-lose situation.
It really is. And as for the first part, do you ever hate? Yes, I have hated the love of God. I have hated people. And I have asked for forgiveness. And for the most part, I think everyone I have made amends with that I know of. If I'm not, Lord, help me remember. Have I ever stolen something? Yeah, of course I've stolen a little something here or there. Everyone's done that. Not saying recently or anything. I'm just saying, like, you're at work or something like that. Here's an example of how stupid and small it can be.
You're stolen a paperclip?
I was actually going to say a sticky note.
A sticky note.
Yeah, because everything, like, you make a note for yourself, you like fold it up and put it in your pants. It's like, I got to remind myself of this later. Actually, I can't think I've done that recently. Anyway, without thinking.
You thief.
Yes. You're not wrong. You are not wrong. So, the point being that technically you had asked for permission and blah, blah, blah. Most of your bosses are going to look at you like, are you an idiot? I don't care. But the point being, it's still an action that is not yours to take. So, therefore, that's a sin. So far we have murdering, thieving, adulterous person, do you think either of us are getting into heaven according to that criteria?
No. It took me a little while. I just don't think we're gonna make it. It came close.
We ran the good race, but you know what? You missed it by that much. I forget which Jim Carrey movie was that.
I want to say
that much.
Say The Mask.
No, wait.
Or was it one of the
Ace Ventura?
Yeah, so it was Ace Ventura.
Now I'm thinking of slinky. Everyone loves the slinky. And then it stops right at the end. No, so close. Go for another round. I really wish I had a slinky right now. Just go shink, 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 shink in my hands. But anyways.
All righty then.
Alrighty then. Anyway, okay. So, back to topic. So now we have those actions that we have done that are sin. We know these actions are sin. Some of them are even unconscious sins too. Here's what I mean by that. Have you ever thought about punching someone? I am a much more aggressive type of person. So yes, I have. Storm, have you ever thought about punching anyone?
Yeah.
Have you ever did it and then said, okay, now can I get away with it and try to figure a way out to make sure it'll work?
I don't think I have.
I've done that more times than I can care to count. So my point being, just the thought of that, that's a sin because you're dwelling on it. It wasn't the initial thought. The initial thought, I learned, I like this. One psychologist told me this. They called it pre-sin. I like this because there's an initial thought that happens, and that initial thought, it's something. If you let it go, okay, there was no action taken, whatever. But the second you have a second look at it, there's where the sin is because now you're dwelling on it. Now it's more romanticized for you. And you're like, man, I'd love to see his face bleeding right now. It'd be fantastic.
Premeditated sin.
Yes, there you go. So even, and sometimes you don't even mean to. It's something you're sitting there trying to, like, okay, if I sit here and I'm going to think about this and now I'm just going to commit more sin. No, it's not what it's talking about. You could even be like unconscious thinking about it just because you're in a mad mood. You're in a bad mood. So you know what? Everything's bothering you today. Everybody's bothering you. So you know what? Everything that happens, you're just having this. You're ticked off, and all these little things. Over time, you're eventually just in this constant state of sinning because just your mindset is over and over. You're dwelling on all these different things. You're holding on to anger, and that eventually leads to hatred, which leads to the dark side. Anyway, So after all this knowledge of how innate in us sin is, it's so embedded into our brains, into our bodies. It's literally in the ground that we walk on. Is there any hope? Are we totally screwed? Nah, I think we got a little hope.
I think we've got some hope. Maybe it's the only hope.
No, I don't think that needs to be a maybe in there. I'm like, no, darn right, it's the only hope. Because
help me, Obi-Wan Kenobi. You're my only hope.
Okay, there's two hopes. There is.
This is a new hope.
So it's not The Force Awakens, which is a remake of The New Hope.
I think I feel like they had to, but we're not going that right now. We're gonna get back on topic.
The new hope. We're just gonna call it The Force Reawakens. Anyways.
So I want to go back to 1 John chapter 3. I'm gonna reread verse 4, and we'll continue on with verse 5 and 6.
Okay.
Everyone who sinned breaks the law. In fact, sin is lawlessness. Verse 5. But you know that he appeared. So let me just start over here. But you know that he appeared so that he might take away our sins, and in him is no sin. No one who lives in him keeps on sinning. No one who continues to sin has either seen him or known him.
Now, for verse 6, I want to separate part A and B. And I will explain why.
Go for it.
Part A is very self-explanatory. Part B, so after the period happens, says no one who continues to sin has seen him or know him. That is going to be a whole separate discussion that is not for today. I've heard biblical scholars go back and forth on this. So you know what? We're going to leave that one alone for today. Not that it is not important. It is very important, but it is not today's topic. Look at me reeling it in. Oh boy. But so no one lives in him keeps on sinning. Well, wait a second. I've accepted Jesus, and I still suck. Does that mean Jesus isn't in me?
Maybe.
That was all you got for me? That was it?
No, yes. Yes, he is still in you, but it's a daily process.
Oh, you know what? I think I know somebody who talked about that. Let's look at what they said in 1 Corinthians 15:31. I assure you, believers, by pride in which I have in your union with Christ Jesus, our Lord, I die daily. I face death and die to self. We got to, every day, every minute, every time.
I was about to say, every minute, every second.
Yes. Be in a constant state of saying, you know what, Lord, I'm messing up. Oh, hey, look at, I did this. Oh, I'm messing up. Oh, I'm messing up. Oh, I'm messing up. Have you ever seen was it that Family Guy episode where it's like, ooh, a piece of candy. Ooh, a piece of candy. Ooh, I messed up. Ooh, I messed up. No matter what, we're going to keep messing up. But the point is, where is our heart? Is our heart for him? Are we coming to him in a spirit of repentance? The word repent, its definition is to change your way of thinking. Now, let me break it down what that means for a pre-repentant heart and a repentant heart. A pre-repentant heart, you mess up, you say, oh, whatever, God will forgive me. Which, once again, this is what I'm going to lay into it. The church leaders out there, you need to teach that this forgiveness of like, oh, I'm just going to do it again. That is not God. It's a fallacy to God. Because he said, if you don't know me, let me read this exact verse again. No one who lives in him keeps on sinning. So the point is, if you are going to keep doing it over and over and over again with an unrepentant heart, the other half of the unrepentant heart that I was talking about, it's like, I messed up again. God, I'm sorry. And your heart is working and striving and thinking of him first. And then you say, you know what, I messed up. And you come to him with a contrite heart saying, you know what, God, I'm a sinner and I need you. Not the I'm a sinner, but you forgive me because you told me. No. You need him. You had that desire saying, God, I can't do this on my own. I need you. That's humility.
I mean, that brings us to, I feel like this entire conversation where there is nothing that we can do to overcome sin unless we go through him.
No matter how many rosaries you do, how many Hail Marys you do, however many church services you attend, it's
people you saved,
irrelevant. Yeah,
it's all irrelevant.
Yep.
The only one that's gonna finish the rest of that bridge is Jesus.
Yep.
And we can go into a different analogy at that point. But
one thing that just popped in my head. Think of this. What did Jesus himself say? Many will come to me saying, Lord, Lord, I'm going to turn them away saying, I never knew you. You are going to have Christians going to heaven to get turned around at the pearly gates because they didn't actually know Christ. And you know what? This is where I blame the church, because you want to talk about just having this nice little lovey-dovey relationship with Christ. Yes, God loves you immensely, and it's amazing. So daggone it, be appreciative of it and live like it, because if you don't live like it, you're going to keep running into the same things the world has. And what in God's name is separating you from the world? Absolutely nothing. He never said pray a prayer. God never said just if you pray a prayer and then go to church on Sunday, maybe do a Hail Mary, well, then you're saved. No, he never freaking said that. No. He said, follow me. And Paul even said, follow me as I follow Christ. The whole point is pointing back to Jesus and recognizing that we suck and we have to go back and say, okay, this is where I'm wrong, and recognize where you're wrong at. If you're too prideful to admit you're wrong, number one, pride is sin. Number two, you're not admitting where you're wrong, and you really want to go down that road when you get into heaven and say, oh, you're getting heaven. Well, I know I didn't do anything wrong. And then you get to heaven, and then Jesus looks at you and goes, you did. What are you going to do, argue with him? You're going to argue with the author of creation? Guess what? No matter what your argument is, you're freaking wrong.
I mean, what else do you have at that point?
It's more like you're standing with your arms crossed. No. Guess what? You can say no all you want. It doesn't matter. This is where the church, and I'm once again yelling at church leaders, do your job. Because your job is not just to hug and counsel. Your job is just to point out the sin, but in a loving way. Example of that, I have someone that I know who is very close to me. And whenever he messes up with something, I have no problem telling him, dude, you're wrong. Stop, you're wrong. I have no problem with that. But he also trusts me because he knows I'm going to give him an honest opinion in love because he knows I care about him. That's what we have to be as Christians. Well, I don't want to bother anybody. Jesus was murdered. So you think bothering people is going to, be something absent from Christian life? No. Every apostle was murdered except for John. I'm still curious if he's walking around, but that's another topic. My point being, Christ was not scared of controversy. And if you are, you're kind of failing. Are you judging me? Yes. Because Jesus said, judge not lest ye be judged, because by the same measure of which you judge, that will be judged for you. So you can judge me for that. I'm totally fine with that. Call me out anytime you freaking want. I will take it. But I'm also going to give it the same way. Because we have to hold each other accountable. And call out sin for what it is. Well, I don't think that's a sin because, that person's comfortable with it. Or maybe they're born with it. I don't know. Or maybe this, maybe that. You know what? Guess what? I don't care what you're comfortable with. You got a choice between heaven and hell. Comfortability is not my first, echelon of importance here. You have to go what's right and what's wrong.
So for those who aren't necessarily here in this room, Sam's been kind of doing this Jekyll and Hyde kind of routine almost in front of me. It's really interesting where goes into the judgment on one side and then he goes to the other side and he's like, but I don't want to hurt anyone's feelings. But you shall be judged, Like, imagine, that's kind of what's kind of happening here. I want to kind of give you a visual of what's happening here in the studio.
Hey, as of the second week in January is when we're planning on having our first video podcast, so stay tuned for that.
Hopefully.
As long as everything works right. But now let's go to...
We want to go to 2 Corinthians chapter 7, 10 through 11.
Go ahead and read that, and then we'll talk about that.
All right. So godly sorrow brings repentance that leads to salvation and leaves no regret. But worldly sorrow brings death.
Full stop.
Stopping.
Full stop.
Stopping.
So, godly sorrow. What does that mean? First off, that means, okay, I realize I messed up and I feel bad about it because I know that I hurt God. Well, how can I hurt God? The same way that if you're a parent and your child messes up with something, you're hurt because you're like, I know they can do better because you love them so much. You want to see them do better and it hurts you to watch them go down the wrong path. So, Not that you're like this subservient, like we are subservient to God, but not just like you're just living with this. And worldly shame brings sorrow and death. Why? Because worldly shame is just this complex of woe is me, I suck, I can't do anything. When I say we suck as humans, the reason I say that phrase, I am pointing out. I almost knocked my mic over. I'm pointing that out because we suck, but he's freaking awesome. So that's why I'm saying this, because he's awesome. So I'm so amazed by that. I say, you know what? We suck, but look how good he is. I don't finish that phrase because that's just where it stops in my head. But my point being, we suck, he's great. But the second we go on to we suck and that's where we stay, that's a bad place to live because then no matter what, everything you're doing, you look down on yourself. Everything you're doing, you're looking like, oh, well, yeah, I suck. Yeah, well, I can't get any better. God might have made a mistake making me. No.
Okay, Eeyore.
Yes, exactly. You can't have Eeyore. Separate side topic for that. Did you know there's a theory out there that all of the Winnie the Pooh characters are all mental disorders?
I did hear about that.
I'm very curious if that
may have been through you. I can't remember.
Yeah. Well, there's a theory out there of that. I'm very curious if that was actually true or not because there's no actual evidence of it, but they all actually very explicitly show different, mental issues. But so your godly sorrow is going to say, you know what, I messed up and I want to please the Father who loves me and I want to make him happy because when I know he's happy, that makes me so happy. That's a goal to achieve. Godly sorrow leads to great things because then you change, you get better. Not that you're not going to mess up again because you're going to mess up again. It will happen. But when you go from the godly sorrow into the worldly sorrow, that one, all it does is put you down. And reality land, it puts the focus back on you. It's not about you. It's never been about you. It's about God. And the second you start saying, woe is me, and it put everything back and forth in your mind, and this is downward spiral. I know it very well. I've dealt with my own mental issues. That it downward spirals in your brain, and then you can't get out of there. That's not of God. That's not godly sorrow. That's just Eeyore. Back to what you said. It's Eeyore.
But it's also the devil trying to bring you down.
Exactly.
He wants to point right back at you.
Yep.
Look what you did. You have gone messed up.
Yep.
No way God's going to accept you now.
And the other thing about that is, that's a great thought. Because the devil's putting back at you. The devil's greatest trick wasn't, making humanity sin. It was making him think about himself.
Mm-hmm.
So.
Oh yeah, that goes right back to the first part of our topic here.
So we think about ourselves over and over again. We think about ourselves when you're in this woe is me state. God's never crossing your mind. It's me, 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 me. So whether or not you're motivated by pride or you're motivated by your shame, either way, not good. So either way, because you're focusing on you and not him, no matter what, the devil's happy. His only goal is not to get you onto him. It's you're to get your eyes off of God.
So we go back to the Genesis chapter 3, when the serpent is tempting the woman. This is where he basically convinces her, you're not like God. He doesn't want you to be like God. This is where he's pointing it like, you are not enough. This is where he
he takes the mental way of like negging is like what that negative date pickup line. You tell somebody something, a negative compliment to try to get them to do what you want. So it's more or less what the devil did. It's always been it's never been about God. It's always been turning it on you because when it's off of God, it's on the devil. No matter what, anything away from God is Satan.
So let's read the verse real quick. We won't go too much further onto it, but I at least want to give you guys the verse. Starting at chapter 2, the woman said to the serpent, "We may eat the fruit from the trees in the garden, but God did say you must not eat the fruit from the tree that is in the middle of the garden, and you must not touch it or you will die." "You will not certainly die," the serpent said to the woman, "for God knows that when you eat from it, your eyes will be opened, and you'll be like God, knowing good and evil."
So let's go back to the beginning. Number one, sin is like a virus. It's in everything. We can't escape from it. Number two, it's also choices. So now we got both of that. So then we talked about how no matter what, we're not going to be good enough. So that kind of leaves you with a bit of despair because then you're like, well, I'm not good enough. Well, let's read James 2:18. But someone will say, you have faith and I have deeds. But show me your faith without deeds, and I'll show you my faith by my deeds. So, not that your good or bad, whatever, is going to determine your faith and how close you are with God. But your faith is going to show in your actions. How do you know a Christian? If you know somebody who is a Christian, you should be able to see that by who they are. So yeah, I'm calling Christians to the mat, myself included. If you are not living your life and following Christ, now everyone's going to mess up. No one's going to be perfect. I've said it before, and I'll say it again. I know I got a problem with language, and I'm sure you'll hear that on one of our Unleashed podcasts, because I won't hold back. But
oh Lord, please help me. Please help me.
Hit that SAP button. Anyway, but yeah. So we all have our issues, but you should be able to tell who a Christian is by their faith, by their deeds. Not that their deeds are their faith. You have a lot of I call it old timers who like to go and be like, okay, well, I need to go to church and do this and that because that's how I know I'm doing the right thing. Number one, yes, we do need to go to church. We don't need to forsake the fellowship of believers. It talks about that in the Bible. We do need to worship. And hey, guess what? You need to tithe. There's many things. But that's not determining your faith. You're doing that because you want to do this, because you want to come closer to God, and you're like, you know what? You asked me to do this, and I want to please you because I love you. The same way as you were when you were a kid, barring I don't know your family relationship. If you had a terrible upbringing, I am sorry. This is not for you then. But if you had a normal upbringing, you wanted to do something to make your parents happy. Therefore, when they were happy, it made you happy. Not that your deeds were one equals the other, but you wanted to make them happy because you knew they loved you and you wanted to see them happy. The same way you have a God who absolutely loves you. He himself died for you. And he wants to see you. So at that point, you're like, I want to please the one who loves me. That's something to achieve. That's something to move forward with. So, and now back to, once again, just our deeds. I'll just take it back one more time. Our deeds are not our faith. Our faith is our deeds. So whatever my heart is, you're going to see it through who I am. You said it a couple weeks ago. You said, show me your 5 closest friends, I'll show you your future.
Yes. Show
me your deeds, and I'll show you who you are. Now, here's where it gets a little tricky. God also talks about not being boasting with your actions. I posted this on my personal Facebook the other, a week or so ago. You see somebody, it was a meme of somebody giving food to somebody who's hungry and then taking a selfie while doing it. The Bible talks about not letting your right hand know what the left is doing. If you're going out there and your purpose is to show everybody how good you are, then you're a Pharisee. Period.
Reminds me of those influencers that got caught.
I hate that term, influencers. Oh my gosh, do I hate that term. I don't hate the people, I hate the term, so it's not a sin. So
it's an interesting term, but when those influencers, when all the riots were happening, were like helping like rebuild, or like took a quick little shot of them painting like over graffiti or something like that, and then as soon as the camera was stopped rolling, they just walked back into their BMW and drove off. Yeah, I'm like,
there was a whole montage video of that I saw. It was some Australian guy narrating it, or a guy with a great Australian accent narrating it. And it was just showing these people like just doing all these little helping people things. And oh my gosh, you arrogant censoring. No, you are not helping anyone. And the worst person you're hurting is yourself, because you're being disingenuous with yourself. That's one thing to take away from this too. Be honest with yourself. We have to be humble in front of God, but that requires you to be honest with yourself. That means you have to say, if you're wrong on something, admit it. And you have to be so self-aware of your intentions. Because if your intentions are that to look good in front of a camera, take a selfie with a paintbrush, and then get back in your BMW, well, guess what? You done messed up. Because you haven't helped a blessed person. Putting one little toot of paint on the walls does absolutely nothing.
But they did get a whole bunch of likes.
Oh, boy, I feel good with all those pats on the back.
Yeah.
Oh. You know, I watched a while back. I know you wouldn't know this one, but for a
What are you saying?
That you're not on social media? Yes, that's exactly what I'm saying.
Just making sure we're on the same page here.
They for a little bit of time they took away like the likes from Instagram. Oh my sweet Lord. There was this woman who came out crying. I mean, you got makeup everywhere. Her entire self-worth was in how many likes she could get. And then she's like saying about how she had to get off and unplug for a while. She had a mental breakdown. That's a problem.
Have you ever seen Black Mirror?
Yeah, I've seen a few episodes, yeah.
There's an episode where basically the entire economy is based off of what people rate you.
I love that episode. I know that one.
Yes.
They're doing it in China right now. There's literally the exact same system in China. Just saying. We gave them the technology. Anyway.
So, just reminded me of that episode.
Oh, yeah. And now you're going to get me going on them.
Nope, we're going to finish it up here. We're going to wrap it up here. Getting close to the end.
All right. So, we know our sin. We know our need for God. Because we went through all the different things that sin is and how much we suck. So, guess what? We need God. And we need to also acknowledge all these different things. Exactly what I just said. Be self-aware. Know who you are. Know what your intentions are. If you don't know that, you're going to fail. And then you're also probably going to hurt other people with you. Especially if you're in that quote-unquote influencer category that I can't say in that term. Know who you are. Know what your reach is. Know the people who you can affect. Try to be a positive effect in some way. Don't do it just to feel good about yourself, because if you're doing it just for that reason, people are going to see through that and it doesn't matter. Try to be a good person, not just act like a good person. And that means getting closer to God. So acknowledge what these issues are. Get closer to God. And let's go back and get back to love. Because that love is what's going to, because when you realize how much He loves you, you're going to move forward in your love for others, because you're saying, because now we recognize what sin is, how much I don't deserve this. So if you don't deserve it, but He loves you, how much more does everybody else? Because we all are terrible. Imagine somebody you can't stand. This guy's terrible. I can't stand him. Bah! But guess what? God still loves him. So if God loves him, shouldn't I love him? Shouldn't I care for people? Yes, people are annoying, but we have to love. So, and we talked about last week what the definition of love is. Get into 1 Corinthians chapter 13. Love is patient. Love is kind. Does not boast. All these different things. And all that is, that's God. That's literally God. Recognize who He is, how much He loves you, and then you can recognize that sin, call it out, and do something about it, but love at the same time. It can be done. So we talked about that. I just want to end on it. End on our love for God and how much we need Him. Storm, what are your closing thoughts?
I mean, we'll never get to heaven if we don't accept His help.
Mm-hmm.
There's nothing. No deed, no 5,000 Hail Marys. There's nothing you can do to make it to heaven except for letting Him do the work.
Yep.
In your heart.
So, end with that and say, you want to know how He loves us? Crack open the Bible. Matthew, Mark, Luke, John. Those tell who Jesus is and what He said. Acts shows you how the church is supposed to be. Romans shows you the philosophy. Get those down, and you can branch out from there, and guess what? You're going to learn a little bit about who Jesus is and who the person who loves you, what He actually said and what He actually did. It's pretty amazing. All right, so we'll see you guys next week on our Christmas episode, and I hope you guys have a good holiday, good December so far, and we'll see you then. Bye.
See you.